Prince Harry's spare, more stories about William left on the cutting room floor as he reveals the book could have been 800 pages. And Christopher Anderson reveals how the Queen would have reacted to Harry's book.
I mean, keep calm and carry on. But I mean, she would have probably taken some action just as she did with Diana,
Plus, psychologist Angela Caranja breaks down Harry's relationship with his brother and why this book is a powerful healing tool for the Duke of Sussex.
When you're presenting your experiences, it's going to include other people. And sometimes some of the things that we mention may not be pretty.
We've got that plus so much more on today's Royally Us. Hello to our fellow royal lovers and welcome to Royally Us. I'm Christina, that's Christine, and not so surprising, lots of Harry news.
There is, but I feel like we've had time to sort of digest the initial stories, and now we can really get into like the nitty gritty.
Definitely. And there's a lot to get into. But of course, you guys had a lot to say about last week's show. Not surprising as well. And a lot of you not too happy with Harry. So Miss Tennessee says, listening to the audiobook, I found myself getting so angry. The constant snipes at his brother got annoying. Really, Harry always paints himself as the hero in each situation with his brother. A rewrite of history to make himself look good and to imply his brother was petty, jealous, and out to destroy him. He is delusional. Kimmy also says Harry didn't take any accountability for anything. It's a bit hypocritical of Harry. And then finally, G.R. Sanger says he is the epitome of disloyal and hypocritical. Not a single one of us would trust our brother's son if they took $31 million to write about all of the details of our most private interactions. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people were saying, where's the accountability from Harry?
Yeah, we talked about this last week, I think a few times, because when you are reading through it, it's one thing for him to sort of, voice his side of the story, but he finds a way to blame someone else every single time.
Every single time. Yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit more with our guest a little bit later on, and maybe why he didn't take accountability and if he sees things differently and things like that. It's going to be an interesting chat, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But let's get into our royal roundup and kick it off with Prince Harry. He did another sit-down interview with The Telegraph, and he revealed that the first draft of Spare was 800 pages. Could have been 2 books. Maybe another one is in the future. But he actually had more stories about his brother, Prince William. He told the British newspaper it was impossible to tell his story without mentioning his family because they play such a crucial part in it. But he made the decision to exclude some details specifically about his father and his brother. He said, there are some things that have happened, especially between me and my brother, and to some extent between me and my father, that I just don't want the world to know because I don't think they would ever forgive me. Not sure if they will now. He continued, now you could argue that some of the stuff I put in there, well, they will never forgive me anyway. But the way I see it is I'm willing to forgive you for everything you've done. And I wish you'd actually sat down with me properly. And instead of saying I'm delusional and paranoid, actually sit down and have a proper conversation about this, because what I'd really like is some accountability and an apology to my wife. Okay. It's interesting that he says that, because a while ago we had reporting that there was a lot of stuff that he actually took out. So that is true, that he said that this book could have been 800 pages. I wonder if he will write another one. If he doesn't get these apologies that he wants, maybe he will let it all out there. Right. But yeah, like we just said, it doesn't seem like he is taking any accountability for himself as well. Maybe he felt like he did that in the conversations that he tried to have privately with them, but it would just be interesting to get another side of this. And I don't think we're ever going to get that.
No, I don't think we will. But it's interesting because this interview almost, with the Telegraph, with Bryony Gordon, who's friends with the Sussexes or friendly with them, it should have been a really interesting interview. But because of how many interviews he's done and how much we've heard from them lately, it really fell flat. I think, it wasn't as impactful. None of this really was well received, because I think people were like, oh, God, another interview. And again, he's asking for accountability when he's not taking any. It's such an interesting, we've heard his side of things. It is difficult when you don't hear the other side of things. But now that we keep hearing his side of things, I think a lot of people are struggling to sympathize just because it's very one-sided. There's no accountability on his end. So it's getting harder and harder to really sympathize with what he's saying.
Yeah. And I think you made a good point before too, that it's hard to sympathize when it's kind of being shoved down our throat nonstop. Like you said, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interviews I think he's had so far about this. I mean, you should have just picked 1 or 2 and let that just, and I don't know, this media blitz, it just seems like a really strange PR move, because it just seems like you said, enough already. We don't need to hear about this again. You're just reiterating the same points over and over again. So what's your goal here? But I think what was interesting in the Telegraph interview that he did talk about William and Kate's kids and potentially those children going through the same issues that he dealt with. He told the Telegraph, as I know full well within my family, if it's not us, me and my brother, it's going to be someone else. And though William and I have talked about it once or twice, and he has made it very clear to me that his kids are not my responsibility, I still feel a responsibility knowing that out of those 3 children, at least one will end up like me, the spare, and that hurts. That worries me. I can't imagine that William and Catherine were probably too happy reading that quote, because like they said that the children are not his responsibility. That's their way. They will parent how they see fit, and I'm sure that they probably didn't appreciate that one.
I think even just dragging them into this conversation, it really highlights how much Harry maybe is overstepping. And William and Kate, especially with all the work that Kate has done and is doing with childhood development, with early years. I mean, those kids are going to get the best support that any of us could ever, want for our children. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is, this concern to me seems really misplaced. I'd love to hear, from an expert, I guess, and maybe we'll talk about that later. But I just think that this is such a strange choice for your brother and his wife, who are so ferociously private, to drag their children into the conversation just seems like, he's really digging a deeper grave.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like, like you said, digging a deeper grave that I don't think that you're going to be able to keep having these wishes for reconciliation, but still saying these things that are, are controversial and going to obviously stir up a lot of emotions and issues. So it's just like, maybe Harry, let's just keep quiet for a little bit. But actually don't, because it gives us a lot to talk about.
Because we like talking about it. But no, I've actually heard so many people saying that like what Harry needs to do now is stop. And I know we've even said it, but a lot of experts and, high profile personalities are saying, okay, he needs to stop this narrative now and move on to something else. Otherwise, this is all he's going to be remembered for. And that would really be a shame.
It would be a shame because, he has done a lot of great work leading up to this point. Maybe he would love to be known as the founder of the Invictus Games and all the things that he does for military and things like that. But no, you are going to be known for the person that smeared your family in public in probably one of the worst ways possible. And, that's not the legacy that he wants to lead. But this is, like you said, this is your grave and you're digging it. So we're going to keep on talking about it. But this was interesting. So a lot of people have been talking about what's fact and fiction in this book and what maybe he took some liberties on. The ghostwriter, J.R. Moringer, not really a ghostwriter anymore, but he's speaking out and made claims that there were some factual errors. He shared a quote via Twitter saying, "The line between memory and fact is blurry, between interpretation and fact. These are inadvertent mistakes of those kinds out of the wazoo." So he also included a link to Mary Karr's The Art of Memoir, where he pulled the quote and others from. He said, "Neurologist Jonathan Mink, MD, explained to me that such intense memoirs, we often record the emotion alone, all detail blurred into unreadable smear." He also posted a couple quotes from the book where Harry kind of claimed that, he said, "Landscape, geography, architecture, that's how my memory rolls. Dates, sorry, I'll need to look them up. Dialogue, I'll try my best, but make no verbatim claims, especially when it comes to the 90s. He said, "It's my memory is my memory. It does what it does, gathers and curates as it sees fit." So he definitely does acknowledge in the book that maybe his memory isn't the best on certain things and we shouldn't take it verbatim and things like that. But yes, definitely interesting that the ghostwriter spoke out saying, recollections may vary.
I know. Well, this is so interesting because how many times did we discuss this where they had to be so careful? This was going to be so meticulously fact-checked. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because in the acknowledgements, Harry thanks his fact-checker. Mm-hmm. And I wonder what on earth for. Because there's so many inaccuracies. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that have just been flat out disproven. And unfortunately, it is sort of taking any or taking a lot of trust out of the story as a whole, because there's just so many holes in the story. And I think the ghostwriter is in a really difficult spot because he probably just ghost wrote what he was told to.
Right.
And I think Harry is correct in saying that, especially when it's your own life, it's your own memory, and it maybe, there are some blurry spots. But there were a couple of things, like when he was told about the Queen Mother's death, that really should have been, fact checked better.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I don't remember what I did yesterday, so I can't remember like going through my entire life. I'm sure things would be different, but yes, no, I'm sure. But there are those like core memories, like you would remember when your, great grandmother passed away or where you were. So that seems like something that you definitely would remember. I don't know. It does seem interesting that, some things were, not remembered as we know, because we know the history and he didn't. So it's definitely interesting. But the royal family is moving on. They are out and about. Prince William was asked about Spare while attending a charity event, but he refused to comment. The Prince and Princess of Wales made an appearance at the Open Door charity when a reporter from Sky News asked if he'd had a chance to read his brother's book at all. Of course, he ignored those questions, but it seems like they are out and about. They are moving on, and not surprisingly, and what we thought, they are not commenting on the book, and I don't think that we're going to get a response.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're often shouted these kind of controversial questions at events, and I've almost never seen them respond. The only times that they'll actually give a comment to the press is usually like in engagements and new babies. They'll say, like Kate and William both said how delighted they were about, sort of Archie and Lily's birth, things like that. It's these big happy occasions, but no, they almost never respond to these questions shouted from the press. But it was good seeing them kind of getting back into business a little bit earlier this year than some years. So hopefully that's a good sign. And then Prince William was out today in Slough meeting with members of an organization. And it's interesting, Slough is not a place that they frequently visited, but they've now done several events in that area because it's so close to Windsor. So it's interesting watching their base shift from central London to further out towards Windsor, Berkshire area. Yeah,
definitely. And King Charles and Camilla, they stepped out as well. Obviously not commenting, but like you said, it's kind of getting back into the swing of things. And, who knows? We don't know if a reconciliation is going to happen. Let's spill some royalty, because there are some reports going around that from the Sunday Times that a reconciliation could happen before the coronation. A source close to the king told the publication the only way forward is for the exiled prince and his wife, Meghan Markle, to kiss and make up with Harry's estranged kin before Charles is officially crowned on May 6th. It's going to take flexibility on all sides, but it can be done. It's fixable. They are saying that they need Harry over there in the room with the king and the Prince of Wales and a couple other family members. It's interesting seeing, source close to the king, because based on what Harry said, that all of these sources close to Kensington Palace are usually from the royal family themselves. So, I mean, take this, I guess, as you will. I mean, it would be nice to see a reconciliation. I just don't know how this can happen.
I think that, what they really want, what the royal family wants, what the royal household that manages all their affairs want, is for the coronation to be about King Charles and to be about the new royal family, that sort of slimmed down monarchy. And they want the attention really mostly on probably King Charles and the Prince and Princess of Wales, really focusing on the future of the monarchy. And this Harry and Meghan drama just takes away from that. So I think if they could sort of, and I think what they want to do, unfortunately, or what they may want to do, is sort of sweep this under the rug, get through May 6th, and then deal with it afterwards.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. But yeah, I know they want this event to be solely focused on King Charles, and it should be. I mean, this is his coronation. This is a historical moment, and it shouldn't be overshadowed by the drama going on with his son. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But like we were saying before, kind of enough already, Prince Harry, and it seems like Hollywood has also gotten that message, because Chelsea Handler, was hosting the Critics' Choice Awards, and she spoke out about Prince Harry as well. She poked fun at his book and his much talked about frostbitten penis while serving as best man at his brother's wedding. She said Niecy Nash Betts is nominated for Dahmer. Dahmer became the third highest viewed show on Netflix with a combined watch time of 1 billion hours, which apparently is the same amount of time we're going to have to listen to Prince Harry talk about his frostbitten penis. Enough already. So it seems like Harry is now the butt of jokes by a lot of people as well.
It has been incredible to see. This is really the story that's taken off. Boots, which is a UK pharmacy, kind of like CVS in the US, released this tweet that went absolutely viral where they put their Elizabeth Arden like 8-hour cream on offer just in case you have similar problems. I saw a photo of duty free for if you happen to have the same ailment, the product was on sale. I mean, this has been amazing marketing in a very strange way for this Elizabeth Arden cream.
Yeah, no, seriously. I do love seeing like the videos going around on like TikTok, because a lot of people have taken Prince Harry's audiobook of him describing this and like just creating like just these funny videos of him talking about the frostbitten penis. There's also, I guess, a moment where he quotes the Spice Girls and he's talking, you hear him saying, "Tell me what you want, what you really, really want." Like it's a lot.
I mean, TikTok really does an incredible job of reinterpreting royal content. Yes, I think
it does,
especially with this, with Harry's memoir. They really, made it entertaining.
They really did. All right. Well, moving on, the story obviously got a lot of buzz. Jeremy Clarkson, he claimed he sent an apology email to Harry, Meghan, and Meghan amid the backlash nearly 1 month after his column made headlines. He wrote on Instagram, "I really am sorry, all the way from the balls of my feet to the follicles in my head. This is me putting my hands up. It's a mea culpa with bells on." He claimed that he was home alone and in a hurry when writing his initial article. He said, "When the column appeared the next day, the landmine exploded. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Had I really said that? It was horrible. I knew what had happened straight away. I'd been thinking of a scene in Game of Thrones, but I'd forgotten to mention this. So it looked like I was actually calling for revolting violence to rain down on Meghan's head." He said he was mortified by the comments. And like I said, he said that he sent an email on Christmas Day, which Harry did confirm because a spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex said that he did write an apology, but it was directed solely to Prince Harry. They told People, while a new public apology has been issued today by Mr. Clarkson, what remains to be addressed is this longstanding pattern of writing articles that spread hate, rhetoric, dangerous conspiracy theories, and misogyny, unless each of his other pieces were also written in a hurry. As he states, it is clear that this is not an isolated incident shared in haste, but rather a series of articles shared in hate. Guess that apology did not go over well, and I don't blame them because this was
honestly had hoped. Jeremy Clarkson is a really well-known personality. He was in Top Gear. Now he did the Grand Tour on Amazon Prime. He has a couple of other shows, and his whole character, his whole persona, is sort of like a grumpy, misogynistic old man, and that is just that's really the way he presents himself to the public in the shows he does, in the articles that he writes. And so his article about Meghan was horrendous, but also a lot of people weren't surprised because that's the sort of persona that he puts on or that he has. And so I think that their response was really interesting, clearly, but it was very much we do not accept your apology.
Yeah, this is not going to go over well. And, if you're writing your articles in a hurry, like that's just sloppy journalism as well, too. And, it was just a bad look all around. And
it really was. But even the editor who ran it should have maybe run that one by him again.
100%. Yeah, this was just a bad decision by a lot of different people, and I don't blame them for not accepting the apology. All right, well, let's break down some royal rules. And this is interesting. We caught up with adolescent psychologist Angela Karanja, and to break down her thoughts on Harry's book and the dynamic between he and his brother, Prince William. Take a look. From a psychologist standpoint, what was your initial reaction when you read Harry's book?
As I read it, I was just feeling this is a young person expressing themselves. This is as I read through it, I could see a lot of a traumatized person, someone who has what we call compounded trauma. So, and what we mean by compounded trauma is when you have gone through trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma, and especially in childhood, there are some things that he revealed, and I was thinking that, and then it doesn't stop there. It comes on again in his adulthood, and especially he talks about his relationship with his multiracial wife, and then he's subjected to what we call racism by proxy. And I could see this person is angry over everything that has happened. But this time he has an opportunity to open up and tell his story in his own words.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that that was his goal for the book? Was it a healing experience, or was it, an opportunity to sort of dig at his family?
This is my belief. I think he got an opportunity to take back his power, because everything that has been said about him was, quote unquote, what he says is lies, right? But this time he has an opportunity to tell his own story in his own words. Of course, we don't live in isolation. And because we don't live in isolation, we have other associations, including our families. And therefore, mentioning his family, it had to be, because he didn't grow up alone. He wasn't an orphan in some island all alone. So when you're presenting your experiences, it's going to include other people. And sometimes some of the things that we mention may not be pretty.
He is sharing a lot of stories that are uncomfortable, but he, feels he's sharing his truth and his side of the story. But there's a lot of criticism that he's not taking any accountability throughout the book. And a lot of the issues were always someone else's fault, rather than, him taking accountability or responsibility for anything that occurred. What does that say about him, or about the situation that he found himself in?
I think, let's not forget that Harry was born into this institution, right? He was born into that. He didn't choose. And there are things, I want you to think of every child want to be seen and to be heard and to be understood. And in all the accounts he has talked about, he presents himself as having had none of that, right? First of all, I personally don't believe it was all that. I never really was heard or seen, or it can be you not one day that you are heard or seen or believed, right? But we must never minimize the internalization of children. That is how he felt, and it's justified. We cannot minimize it, and we just have to validate it as such, right? He goes on to talk about a lot of other things. I believe where Harry should take responsibility is, like many people who have been wounded, is, yes, this happened to me. This happened to me. These people did this to me, right? They operated at the level of awareness that they knew. However, I, now as a grown-up, I'm responsible for my healing. I'm responsible for my processing whatever happened.
Talk a little bit about the brother dynamic, because it seems like a lot of his deep-rooted issues stem from his relationship with his brother, obviously feeling the spare. And do you get the sense that it was a jealousy between he and William, or did he always feel inferior? And is that common for a younger sibling to feel like a spare from time to time?
I suppose because of their status, which is when you're growing up in a royal family, you're either the heir or the spare, right? That's just how it is, right? And just reading through, I didn't feel jealousy. I felt a kid being left out. Mm-hmm. And as a child, I don't think at that time, they can fathom things like, I'm going to be the king, I'm going to be the queen. I don't think that there's that understanding. However, there's the wounding when maybe one is given one thing and another one is given. So you have this feeling of, why me? Why me? And kids begin to ask themselves, what's wrong with me? And when they ask themselves those questions, it batters their inside. So I must not, they make stories in their head, I must not be good enough. And that's where trauma stems from. This unprocessed negative self-talk. And as he says, he didn't think that the dad had especially when he lost the mom, had the compassion or even the skills to deal with it, right? The truth is, all of us have experienced some sort of bad experiences as kids, whether it's, I don't know, there's so many to mention, right? But the difference between trauma that lasts and one that comes and then it's processed is just how you process. If you have what we call protective factors, if you have someone who says to you, oh, is that how you felt? I'm sorry you felt like that, but here is what it is. You are still valuable. You are still valid. You are a person who can add value to the world. And as they grew older, that could have been reinforced by maybe someone in their circle saying, you may not one day be a king. However, that doesn't make you less of a person. There are other ways that you can contribute. Look inside yourself. You've got skills. All of us have some sort of strong skills. And that is where we move away from competition. But when one young person, like, for example, the older brother is being treated in a different way and is being prepped for being an heir, and then this one is, because he's a spare, maybe we don't have to work so much on him and he's just there. There is some sort of abandonment that children feel, whether they're from the royal family or not. That is a universal feeling of feeling I'm not enough, right? And that can affect their self-esteem. And that's why I said, right, for the longest time, you see him doing things maybe to try, and I'm still here, see me, notice me, right? There's all that, right? And then he comes to a point later in life where he realizes, maybe I don't have to do that. Maybe I need to begin to heal. Maybe I need to have therapy and actually heal from inside.
Prince Harry says that he worries for Prince William's children, specifically Charlotte and Louis, that they might experience the same, feelings. Is that concern misplaced? Do we see that they have good support? Are those situations comparable?
They are very comparable. In fact, you say that because not long ago I was asked to write an article on that exact same thing about the older brother of the eldest child of William, Prince of Wales, and the others. But then what I said is, if from an early age, I have commented on Katie's parenting and how you can see she listens, she leans in, they are growing in an age where they understand, whoa, we can't afford to neglect the feelings of our young people, our kids, right? And I believe if they can say to them, yes, this one may be the heir one day. However, you two are just as beautiful. You two are just as valuable. Go and excel in your own field. Then there would be no reason for competition. Sometimes when there is competition,
when King Charles and Prince William read this book, how do you think that they should handle the situation? How do you think a reconciliation could be possible going forward?
I think this is a point of conversation, right? I believe maybe Harry has tried to tell them this for a long time, but maybe they didn't listen. I don't know, because I haven't spoken to them. But I believe this can be a point. They can change the game, no matter what. So they're looking at this kid. They're saying, King Charles says, "Right, you're my son, right? Is this how you felt all this time?" And there are magic words that parents can say to their kids, and that is, "I'm sorry, I did not know this is what you are going through." Can we now begin to recalibrate this relationship? Let's make it count, because we've got many years to live together. And the best thing we can do is have a reconciliation and have possibly a better relationship, right? And I think it's hard, it's hard, especially if you've been exposed against because there was this image they've been trying to protect, but the image has been now shown as, it's not as perfect as you thought, right? But I think if they can come up as human and say, okay, there's things that Harry said that were right, there's things that he said that were not right, but let's build this family. If they can do that, then I think we would see, I want to call it magic, but I also want to call it a miracle.
Definitely an interesting conversation and an interesting perspective. All right, well, let's move on to our royal history moment of the week. And last week we caught up with our friend Christopher Anderson, and we also had to ask him his thoughts on what the late Queen Elizabeth would have thought about Harry's book. Take a look. What do you think the Queen's reaction would be? And do you think that he did move this book until after her death? Because it probably would have created a different type of uproar, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't wait a little bit longer, because the Queen's reaction, well, I mean, nothing could rattle the Queen, apparently. I mean, keep calm and carry on. But I mean, she would have probably taken some action, just as she did with Diana, and it's a similar situation, I think. She certainly is the person who began all of this the minute she would not allow a part-time royal situation, she could have made all the accommodations for the Sussexes that they wanted. She chose not to do that, and because you're either all the way in or you're out. And she had apparently no qualms about taking away his military ranks, with ceremonial ranks, which was really a devastating blow to him. So I think maybe Charles will channel her in terms of this kind of strength, and at some point do something decisive so he can put it behind him. If he can do that before May, I don't know, but he'll have to probably do it at some point.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see Queen Elizabeth's take on this, but I'm pretty sure Harry probably would have waited until she passed on until releasing this anyway.
Yeah, I know. We talked to Gareth about it last week, about how, there was probably some edits afterwards to really shift the narrative following the death of the Queen. So I think that, this probably wouldn't have come out until she had died. And then even then, lots of scrambling to sort of change the final book around.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's move on to our pint-sized palace. And in Harry's interview with People magazine, he stated that he wants his children to have a relationship with the royal family, saying, "I've said before that I've wanted a family, not an institution. So of course I would love nothing more than for our children to have relationships with members of my family. And they do with some, which brings me great joy." You hope to see this in the future. You hope that the cousins can have some sort of relationship because, why not? I mean, the children shouldn't have to suffer.
There's really nothing better than seeing your children with their cousins. I think that's so special as a parent, but also when you think about your own really close relationships, and Harry's closest relationships are probably with his, with Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, and with Mike and Zara Tyndall. They're all very close, you can tell. So I think that is probably important for him, and he would hopefully like to give his children those same types of relationships.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to know what Eugenie has to think about all of this too, because I feel like maybe they're kind of caught in the middle. Like I would love to know.
I think so. Yeah, especially Eugenie. I think she's very much caught in the middle, not really sure what to do. I'd love to hear her in her thoughts.
Totally. All right. Well, that is it for this week's episode of Royally Us. Lots to talk about this week. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say, so please keep commenting, keep subscribing, and we will see you guys next week. Bye. For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.